Have you ever really thought about what goes on behind the curtain in the world of trading? Well, today we are digging into the wild story of César Barriga. He was a top-tier algorithmic trader who, after one absolutely catastrophic failure, discovered a secret about how the market really works. All right, let's get into it. This quote from the man himself really says it all. It's that age-old conflict, right? Human intuition versus cold, hard code. And for César, this wasn't some abstract idea. No. This was a lesson he learned from a mistake so huge, it completely changed the course of his life.
So, just how big was this mistake? Okay, picture this. You tell your trading algorithm to open a pretty standard position, say, for 2 lots. Now, imagine you wake up and find out it actually placed a trade for 200 lots. Yeah, that's a position 100 times bigger than you intended. A single bug in the code created this monster. And Barriga? He was just paralyzed, totally frozen, watching this massive loss just get bigger and bigger for days.
But see, before all this disaster, César Barriga was basically on top of the world. From about 2010 to 2013, he was the #1 algorithmic trader at FXCM, which is one of the biggest brokerages out there. He and his team seriously thought they had cracked the code with this one-of-a-kind automated strategy.
So their secret weapon was a strategy called grid trading. And basically, what the algorithm did was it would keep adding to positions as the market kind of bounced around inside a predictable range. It wasn't about catching some big dramatic move up or down, but just making money off that sideways chop that, happens most of the time in currency markets. And you know what? For 3 solid years, it worked like a dream. The markets were just moving sideways, and that algorithm was basically a money printing machine. Barriga was bringing in huge returns, and he figured, hey, he was on the fast track to a billionaire lifestyle. But, as we all know, the market always has a lesson to teach, doesn't it?
And this is where that perfect system starts to just fall apart. And it wasn't just because of one little coding error. Oh no, it was more like a 1-2 punch that completely knocked him out. So first you have the bug, right? The 200-lot trade that left him frozen in his tracks. But then something even weirder happened. His own broker, FXCM, just suddenly changed the rules of their platform. It was a technical change, but he knew it was specifically designed to make his winning grid strategy impossible to use. They basically just kicked him to the curb.
And in his own words, the dream was just over. He had reached the very top, only to crash and burn in the most spectacular way possible. The mix of his own huge mistake and his broker seemingly turning against him just sent him spiraling.
But, that really painful experience forced him to ask a super important question. It made him dig in and ask why. Why did this happen? And that led him to discover the real game being played behind the scenes. A game that most retail traders, probably you included, have no idea is even going on. I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. It doesn't make any sense, does it? You're the #1 guy, bringing in the most business, the best returns. Why in the world would your broker want to get rid of you? This is the question that unlocked the market's biggest secret for Barriga.
So he found out that there are basically 2 ways a broker can operate. The first is called the A-book model. This is what we all think our broker is, right? They're just an intermediary connecting us to the real market and taking a small commission. But then there's the B-book model. And here, the broker is the house. They are the casino. They literally take the other side of your trade. So when you win, they lose. And when you lose, well, they win.
And here is the kicker, the really shocking part. Barriga discovered that over 80% of retail brokers are running on this B-book model. They're not on your team. They have a direct financial reason for you to fail. Barriga was just winning too much, and it was costing his B-book broker a ton of money. So what they do? They got rid of him.
And if there was any lingering doubt about how this B-book model works, it was completely wiped away on one of the most infamous days in modern trading history, the day the Swiss franc basically broke the market.
So here's what happened. For months, the Swiss National Bank had guaranteed that the euro would not fall below 1.20 Swiss francs. So retail traders saw this as easy money, and they just piled into long positions right at that level. Then, poof, without any warning, the bank removed the peg. The floor just vanished. The price collapsed from 1.20 all the way down to 0.80 in a matter of seconds. 90% of retail clients at one broker were completely wiped out, instantly.
And what about the B-book brokers? Oh, it was the greatest day of their lives.
Barriga found out that one broker in particular made $14 million in just a few seconds. How? By profiting directly from their clients' devastating losses. This was the system, right out there in the open.
So, armed with this pretty devastating knowledge, Barriga didn't quit. No way. Instead, he completely rebuilt his entire philosophy from scratch. He realized that if the house is always betting against the players, and the players almost always lose, then the smartest bet is to trade with the house.
This is the statistic that became the cornerstone of his entire new approach. Over 90% of retail traders lose money. It's a fact. They're consistently on the wrong side of the market, they're trying to pick tops and bottoms, they're using too much leverage, and they're trading based on emotion.
And this led him to this beautifully simple yet incredibly powerful realization: if you can figure out what that losing 90% is doing, the highest probability trade you can make is to simply do the complete opposite. It's an amazing idea that came directly from his painful journey.
So he threw out all the complex algorithms and came up with a simple, manual, 4-step process. First, find a strong trend on a bigger time frame. Second, and this is key, use data from brokers to wait until over 70% of retail traders are betting against that trend. Third, use daily pivot points, which are just key price levels from the day before, to get in at a fair price. And finally, use simple trend lines to know when it's time to get out. That's it, the whole shebang.
Like he says himself, the strategy is almost so simple it's funny. It's not about being some genius who can predict the market. It's just about having the discipline to wait for the crowd to be wrong and then calmly taking the other side of that trade.
And so this whole journey, from the absolute peak of algorithmic trading down to the depths of failure and then back up again through this deep understanding of how the market is really built, it's given Barriga a brand new purpose.
He actually calls himself the Robin Hood of trading now. His mission is to pull back that curtain for everyone, to teach people that trading is a real business that needs patience and a process, and to give them the same edge that for years only the brokers have had.
And really, it all leaves us with this one big question to chew on. César Barriga's story seems to suggest that maybe the only way to really win is to first understand the secret rules of the game and then learn how to play it completely differently from everyone else.